Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Gauratanandi. Hare Krishna. Bhagavad Gita, some electronic version.
No, that's not big one.
Okay. I'm here. Thank you. Here comes the book. Papa's like books. Of course, he didn't have an opportunity to experience cell phones in his brief stay with us. I think he would have still liked books.
I still like books.
So I'm just going to read a famous verse from the fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text number 3. Sai vayam maya teja, yoga prukta puratana, sit me sakachati, asram etad uttamam. Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. The Guru, please repeat. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. Report. There are two classes of men, namely the devotee and the demon. The Lord selected Arjuna as a recipient of this great science owing to his being a devotee of the Lord. But for the demon, it is not possible to understand this great mysterious science. There are a number of editions of this great book of knowledge. Some of them have commentaries by devotees, and some of them have commentaries by the demons. Commentation by the devotees is real, whereas that of the demons is useless. Arjuna accepts Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and any commentary on the Gita following in the footsteps of Arjuna is real devotional service to the cause of this great science. The demoniac, however, do not accept Lord Krishna as he is. Instead, they concoct something about Krishna and mislead general readers from the path of Krishna's instruction. Here is a warning about such misleading paths. One should try to follow the disciplic succession from Arjuna and thus be benefited by this great science of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Chakshurum Litam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurudev Vichetani Mano Vishtam Spakitam Yena Buddhade Swayam Rupakadam Iswara Padam Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashaya Buddhade Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gurvani Pacharine Vishesha Shunyavadi Paschate Vishatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasana Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, in the last line of the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that one should try to follow the disciplic succession coming from Arjuna. Now, many people have asked me, Krishna gave it to Arjuna, well, who received it after him? And this is called shiksha. One thing is a diksha parampara, which means, somebody initiates someone, and then that person is selected or takes on the responsibility of capturing those teachings as they are and pass them on. So there's no one person, but actually, as Krishna says in the previous verse, that that I am giving this parampara It is to be understood by great kings. Srila Prabhupada says that it is clearly stated that the Gita was especially meant for saintly kings because they have to execute the purpose. So this is very interesting that we think Bhagavad Gita is for devotees, and of course we hope the king would be a devotee. Not so much the case nowadays in most places. But the point is that this is the responsibility. Otherwise, if we analyze the heads of state, just like one of our GBC member, a friend of mine, Devamrita Swami, he had a close relationship with the Prime Minister of New Zealand. And so one time he asked him, what do you do in these big summits? They said, everyone praises China. And this was many years ago, it's not recently, with the previous leader of China. He said, because all the world leaders consider this to be perfect government. You have everyone under control. So, but this is, of course, when we speak about parampara, it does mean to have everyone under control. But you give that control to them. You don't control them, you give them control. You give them the science of Krishna consciousness, as it says in the second chapter, that what I'm giving you, Arjuna, is the regulative principles of freedom. Otherwise, this is the duty of parampara. You give the regulative, you give them the principles by which they can attain freedom. But ultimately, it depends on the individual. Whereas modern government depends on orienting people's consciousness so that they will do what you want them to do. Of course, the parampara, the guru, also, you want them to do something. But you tell them the consequences of doing it properly and improperly. This is stated in Ishopanishad, that along with knowledge you have to give neshan. Meaning not that you make people neshan, you make people ignorant, but you explain the dangers of ignorance. And Bhagavad Gita accomplishes it. Just like in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he gives the principles of knowledge, and especially the 16th chapter, he gives a long exposition on what is knowledge. And then the rest of the chapter explains what is ignorance and the consequences. And so this is the benefit of Parampara. It gives you freedom of thought. But you have to have freedom of thought, you have to think in the right way. Otherwise, there is no freedom of thought. It's like now we have this wonderful phenomenon called social media. And it doesn't give you freedom of thought. Although people think, well, this is yet freedom of thought. It's just a bunch of sentimental opinion, which are generally not based on fact, based on feeling, what somebody feels. And sometimes there's fact, but you never know. The internet is famous for not being factual, in the sense that what I've seen in any case is that you look up something, anything, and then you look a little farther down and you'll find the opposite. And then you get it. So otherwise it generally becomes confusing. If you explore it long enough, you get so many different opinions that whatever you thought. Otherwise, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we were discussing this the other day, he would give an argument, and then he would ask his students, please defeat this argument, and no one could do it. Then he would defeat it. And then he would tell everyone, now defeat this argument, no one can do it. And he would defeat it. And then he would tell everyone, defeat this argument. And no one could do it, and he would defeat it with the first argument that he already defeated. So, this is like internet. This is the first introduction to the wonders of internet. And by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, before internet existed. And the Bhagavatam gives the idea of the atom before anybody knew what was an atom. And explains not only what is an atom, but what is its function. How it can be practically utilized. And what do we do with atoms? We make them into a bomb. Or we create electricity, but if something goes wrong with the electrical plant, then radiation leaks all over the place, and you have a problem. So this is the world we live in. And here Krishna is giving us the perfect world. Because the perfect world exists within the consciousness of the individual. The perfect world will never exist. There is a perfect world, but it is also on the level of consciousness. Chintamani literally means, jewels of consciousness. And the spiritual world is consciousness. There's no matter, there's no time, there's no space. Everything that we base everything on that in our existence does not exist in the spiritual world. But the impression of the spiritual world in its perfect state are translated into the material energy, but governed by time, governed by space, and it's our duty to raise our consciousness. So this verse that we just read, and that Krishna says, today I'm telling you. Why didn't he tell him yesterday or the day before? He says today, not our today, but his today, is because Arjuna was not ready. This is contemplated in the last line of this verse. Rahasyam etat uttamam. That this is very confidential. Now Bhagavad Gita, later in 9th chapter, idam tapte guyatamam raksham yanasuyave. That this is guyatamam. There is guya, guyatara, and guyatara. Guya means Brahman realization. It is confidential. It is beyond the modes of nature. Mam chayogya vicharina bhakti yogena sevate sadhunam samatityanikam. It will raise you beyond the modes of nature. So powerful. But Brahma took this prasanatma. This is Brahma-bhuta. Very powerful. Ashokshati napamshati. It takes away the two greatest sources of misery in our existence, the past and the future. Past and the future causes so many problems. Old people are generally more concerned with the past because there's not so much future. Future diminishes day by day. And young people are always, what will I'll do this. And intelligent people don't do either one. They learn from the past. They may plan the future, but that plan is always subject to the jurisdiction of the Supreme Personality of God. You can't live without making any plan. Srila Prabhupada said, he said one time, don't make too many plans. And don't be attached to your plan. This is very difficult for most of us, because we're trying to create an eternity within the, within the temporary existence that we're living in. And so we make plans to achieve the three things that are our very composition. Such existence. We want to make sure that our existence will go on. And therefore, we have security systems, we have insurance policies, we have medical, medical field, we have, economies and societies and philosophies, and all these things. But there is no security. At any moment, everything is finished. Any moment. Just like I mentioned the other day, I won't tell the whole story, but there was one devotee, his father was a consulate of a certain country, so I met the man, I convinced him, I explained Krishna consciousness in such a way that he finally understood it, because his son was explaining it in a very fanatical way, and he hated Krishna. When I explained it, he liked it. And not that I just had a little more experience than his son. It's like the first time I met my parents after, coming to Krishna consciousness. I brought a Bhagavatam and sat down with them. I said, first thing I said, do you know we never went to the moon? And they said, he's crazy. I said, it was right here. This is Srimad Bhagavatam. Then I read the first verse. I thought they would be overwhelmed by the logic. And they're looking at each other, what's he talking about? And then they tried to get me deprogrammed. It's just 3 days later. They said, let's go visit your sister in Houston. Oh, okay. So I went. And they picked us up in their car, my brother-in-law. And we were driving, and he pulled over. And he said, I can't do it. What's that? He said, they're taking you to be deprogrammed. So I jumped out of the car and slammed the door. I said, I never wanted to see you again. Ran down the street. I walked all the way to the temple. It was about an hour and a half. they didn't know me in the temple, but they allowed me to come and explain what happened. And then, interesting, that same temple, I was there again, and there was this 1P program, Ted Patrick, famous man, ignorant, the most ignorant person you could ever meet. And so I was chanting on the roof, and I saw this young girl come up, knocked on the door, and I knew that no one would answer. So I went down and answered it. Said, I want to see my brother, Gargamuni. I said, okay. Yeah, he's here. So you're his sister? Yes, yes. Okay, I'll go call him. But when he was getting dressed, I went back up on the roof to chant. I saw her walking, and then she turned the corner and went down and saw this big limousine. So I ran down the stairs and I asked her, do your parents have a limousine? No, they're very middle class people. I think we have a Datsun. No. And so I said, okay. So I ran back upstairs and looked. I saw this big, African descent man looking around. I said, there's something wrong here. So by the time I got downstairs, he was walking around the corner where that limousine. I saw these people grab him and throw him in the car. So I ran back in the temple, and I said, Gargamuni's being kidnapped. And so some three devotees jumped out. We jumped in a van. We pulled out. They were just leaving. But we pulled up behind them, and we pulled beside them and said, turn over. They pulled out a gun. So we pulled back, and then they started going very fast. And we started going very fast. We pull up beside them, they pull out the gun, we pull back. And then, we were speeding down the freeway, and a policeman, so he started following us. He was trying to pull us over, and we were going to the policeman, pointing to them. And we pulled over all the way into off the road, like off the freeway, off the line, the marked part. And I probably got rid of. I tried to kidnap. I kept pointing to the limousine, and then I pulled back behind the limousine, and so then the police pulled up in front of them, pulled them over, and pulled us, and we pulled in behind the limousine. And the police were like blocking the road. And the limousine tried to pull back, but we were back to hit it. And so the police got out with guns and told them to get out. And we got out, they put a gun on us. I said, they kidnapped our friend. And he said, yeah, they kidnapped. What's going on here? So where's your friend? He's in that car. And so they opened all the doors. They called like 3 more police cars, came running in, behind, and so he got out. And so what's next? We asked him what I said, these people are called deep programmers. We're a religious organization, and someone has tried to kidnap him. Wait a minute. He said, son, how old are you? I said, I think he was 21 or 22. He said, 20. So you're an adult? Yeah. Do you want to be with these people? And he said, no. They just grabbed me and threw me in the car. And so then the police, and this is big Ted Patrick, he just started cursing at us. And the police said, shut up. And they handcuffed him. And I don't know what happened after. We got him back. And one policeman came up to me and said, that was very brave what you did. And because they found guns, they found guns in the car. I said, well, we're just rescuing our friend. I said, our spiritual master said that if anyone offends the Lord or his devotee, then you must take action. And I thought, okay, yeah, sounds good. I don't know why I had to tell that story. Interesting. Because they wanted to. So this happened to many devotees. Another devotee friend of mine, he got 2 more. Actually, the temple president of that temple, Houston Temple, he got taken by the deep program. just have a little deprogramming session here. And so they what they do, he told me the whole thing, they lock you up, and they show you all these videos of people in Hare Krishna, Munis, and some other group, and you know how these people who have been liberated, and they're saying how they were tortured and this and that. The cult tortured them, brainwashed them. You know, they see all these movies. Then they, you know, in the case of the devotees, they would only give them meat to eat, and of course the devotee wouldn't do it. And then after a few days, they give you some bread or something. It was something horrible, you know, some canned beans and some bread, or you know, so hoping that you'll break down and eat the meat, which no devotee ever did, and maybe one or two, some bread. So then he figured, I'm never going to get out of here. So then he thought, he said, you know, I want to see my parents. I'm convinced. Can't we go and take dinner with my parents? I'm not going to eat this stuff you're trying to serve me, but I want a steak dinner. And okay, he called the parents. He went to the restaurant, sat down, embraced his parent, and they thought, oh, this is. And then he called the waiter, and he whispered in his ear. He said, "I've been kidnapped. Call the police." And the waiter goes back to. And so the waiter went and called the police, and then they brought the meal, and he said, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. He picked up the table like that, and a big commotion everywhere. And then the police arrived and took him away. Devotee. And then one deprogrammer told one devotee who got away, and they caught him back, and he got away. And then the police came, and the deprogrammer said, you know, I'm not gonna do any more Hare Krishna. No. The other people, they're easy, but you guys, you guys don't give up. No. So the point is that this is faith, and this faith comes from parampara. The parampara is so powerful because this is what's behind it, and therefore. Krishna says, he says Srila Prabhupada says in the introduction, that this parampara is coming from Arjuna. But how is that parampara coming from Arjuna? It is through shiksha. It is not diksha. And so I'm making this point because this is something that I've been trying to help devotees realize. The importance of shiksha. The importance of course, when we get initiated, we have a Diksha Guru. We should obey the Diksha Guru, and the Diksha Guru has the final word. But in a multi-guru society, if you can call it that, I have many times said that Srila Prabhupada has succeeded in creating what existed in the time of Mahaprabhu. It has not existed since then, which is a multi-guru society. That was there. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, does anyone know who the Diksha Guru of Raghunath Goswami is? Does anyone know who the Diksha Guru of so many different devotees there? Some we may know, but some we may not know. And so, because Raghunath came and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu put him under the care of Swarup Damodar. But it never says that he was initiated by Swarup Damodar. We don't even know. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would initiate people by embracing them. And, you know, if you get embraced by Mahaprabhu, you're probably pretty qualified. And actually, one time, Mahaprabhu, when he was traveling, he's on his way to Jagannath Puri after he had taken sannyas. He stopped by one place, which was a washerman's building. So there was one washerman building. And Mahaprabhu said, chant Haribol. The washerman was thinking that this is some trick, some technique or something. He didn't do it. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said Haribol, and his influence was so strong. He said Haribol, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just touched him. And he went into ecstasy. And he was rolling on the ground and chanting, tears coming from his eyes. And all the other washermen said, this is some magician. He's haunted by a ghost. And they went and got the wife, and the wife was crying. But then the washerman got up, and he started chanting Haribol and embracing everyone. And as soon as he embraced someone, they all started chanting Haribol. And pretty soon, the whole village was chanting Haribol. And so this is the power of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He also, this happened with Nakula Brahmachari, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually entered into the body of Nakula Brahmachari. And so he was preaching, and everybody was saying that he is empowered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has entered into his body. So the news came to Srivas, and Srivas was not convinced. So he went to Nakula Brahmachari to find out, to test him. And so Nakula Brahmachari saw him, and he said, "Oh, Srivas, do you remember," I can't remember the incident, but he said an incident. "Do you remember this?" No. And Srivas, he is empowered by Mahaprabhu. So, but this is what, in essence, this is what the parampara is supposed to do with us. It is supposed to empower us. And therefore, Krishna gives 3 elements that must be there so that this empowerment takes place. He says, that Bhaktusi me sakachati. Bhaktusi. First, you must be my devotee. But beyond being my devotee, you must be my friend. Because Krishna says, Surinam Sarvabhutana, that in order to achieve peace or living beyond material existence, you have to realize 3 things. Okaram Jagatapasa. That Krishna is the recipient of everything. Sarvaloka Maheshwara. Krishna, why is he the recipient? Because it belongs to him. Even if you don't want to give it to Krishna, let's say you're not a devotee of Krishna, and Krishna says, why should you give it to me? Because it belongs to me. Because aham sarvasya prabhu mata sarvam pravartate. Because everything material and spiritual emanates from me, Krishna said. So therefore, we should give everything to Krishna. And then he says, another reason why you should offer everything, because he is the real friend of all the living entities. Such a good friend. Has anyone experienced, like, you have someone that you call your friend, but then you do something they don't like, and they're not your friend anymore? Did anybody have that experience? Most of us, with some people, have had that experience. But a real friend, it doesn't matter what you do or what they do, a real friend will never abandon you. And this is Krishna. This is why Krishna said, he is the friend of every living entity, because he's living in the heart of the living entity and waiting. If you're a duck, he teaches you how to quack. If you're a bird, he teaches you how to fly. If you're Krishna's always there. Can you imagine how boring that would be for most of us? If you had to live in somebody else's house, heart? Sometimes we get bored with ourselves. We have to turn on television or something, and if we're bored. So how boring would it be to be? But Krishna, he tolerates it. He tolerates being in the heart of every, he tolerates being in every atom. Because without his presence in the atom cannot move. The reason those little electrons are spinning around is because It's Paramatma. It's not because the scientists are trying to figure it out. And Bhagavatam and Upanishads figured it out a long time ago. It's because Paramatma is there. But they'll never accept that. One time Srila Prabhupada was walking in Andhra Pradesh, in some valley, and Prabhupada said, now Andhra is very famous for rock formation. So Prabhupada said, just see how amazing this whole creation is. And then Prabhupada walked a little farther, and he said, they will never believe. Who, Prabhupada? They will never believe it. Prabhupada said it like 3 times. He said, they will never believe that just by chanting the holy name of Krishna, you could realize this. They will never accept. And therefore, in this verse, Krishna says, you must realize that he is your best friend, and rahasya. You must realize that this knowledge is very confidential. It can only be revealed by this process. You can't acquire it, you can read. Like I said many times, Einstein couldn't understand Gita. He could understand some of the logic, a very intelligent man. He could understand, some of the teaching, but he could not accept Krishna as a person. Because he could not understand the 4th chapter. He could not understand karma. Although he accepted karma to some degree, but he couldn't accept that karma was responsible for the Holocaust. Such an intelligent man, but still betrayed by his own emotion that he could not understand Krishna because he had no guru. Such someone who could figure out that beyond time and space, there is an energy, and when energy is accelerated to a certain degree, it can come up to the speed of light. And beyond the speed of light, everything bends. He figured that out, but he couldn't figure out Bhagavad Gita. That's how confidential it is. But a simple person with no education, if they hear Bhagavad Gita from the Parampara, they may not understand all of the philosophical intricacies of Bhagavad Gita, but they will understand the essence of Bhagavad Gita. They will understand there are 2 types of people because you can see it. If it's explained to you clearly, one can see there are the divine and there are the demoniac. Krishna explains it here, and then he explains it again in 7th chapter. And then he explains it again in the 16th chapter. That there are divine people and there are demoniac people. And this is so clear. So this is what I wanted to convey, that this parampara is designed by Krishna in such a way. This Bhagavad Gita is being passed down by the parampara in the form of shiksha. The parampara takes this shiksha because you won't find Arjuna's disciple. There is no disciple of Arjuna. But you find that he has he received Bhagavad Gita perfectly from Krishna, by Krishna's desire. Just like we were reading in the Bhagavatam in Shishi Radha Gopinath temple, we're reading that Narada Muni saw Krishna doing all kinds of different things in different places. He saw it because he wanted to see it and Krishna wanted him to see it. So this is what must take place. This is what takes place with friends. So it's not even enough to be Krishna's devotee. You have to become Krishna's friend. He says it right here. You will understand the secret. You must become a devotee. Manmana bhavamat bhakto mam yaji mam namaskuru. You must become a devotee. But when you mami vashasi yuktaiham, when you cannot separate yourself from Krishna, you go beyond being his devotee, you become his friend. A friend is someone from whom we cannot separate ourselves. So indirectly, Krishna is explaining in that core verse of Bhagavad Gita. The essence of Bhagavad Gita is right there at the end of the 9th chapter, right in the middle. Just like our heart is in the middle of us. And the heart of Bhagavad Gita is right in the middle, right at the end of the 9th chapter. Just exactly in the middle. Telling you the secret of Bhagavad Gita. This is how you understand Bhagavad Gita. You know, Srila Prabhupada says in the introduction, if you want to understand this Bhagavad Gita, at least you must accept Krishna theoretically as the Supreme Personality of God. Otherwise you won't understand. That's why Einstein, that's why so many philosophers, that's why Dr. Radhakrishnan could not understand. He was brilliant. And therefore, here it says, it doesn't say it directly, but philosophers, scientists, they cannot understand. Brilliant people, the most intelligent people on the level of intellect on the whole planet. And they can't understand Bhagavad Gita. And we pick someone up from who knows where and help them to purify their existence by chanting the holy name and by association with the Vaishnava, and they can understand. You know? But even if you're a devotee, it's not so easy to understand. Because understanding means you understand the theory and you put it into practice. That's when understanding takes place. And therefore Krishna says that jnana vijnana sahitam, that you must have the knowledge and you must know how to apply it. And that is the specific duty of Guru. We can acquire the knowledge. We can, you know, if you have some brain power, you can acquire the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. But how to apply it, how to fully understand it, and then how to apply it, that requires Guru. And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has advised that we should, Krishna advised, that we accept the spiritual master. But what does Krishna say? Srila Prabhupada explained, how do you understand this verse? So Srila Prabhupada said 3 times that I know of. First, you become submissive. Then you do service. And then you will know what to ask. Don't ask. If you just ask, then it will be an encyclopedic exercise. People start to ask. So Prabhupada said, don't waste the time of the spiritual master. First, you do service. Then you will know what to ask. And Prabhupada said many times, he would say, that is not a good question. Because it was not bringing someone closer to Krishna. This is the kind of question that we were discussing today. That a good question means something related to Krishna. So this is what we should, this is our only business. We may have other business, meaning to make money, to achieve something in this world, but the only purpose of achieving something in this world is to enhance our Krishna consciousness. There's no other purpose to life. There's nothing else. Everything else is just maintaining the body. Either you maintain the body in a simple way. I just came from the farm. No, you can go there and plant vegetables and live simply. And you know, it's so nice there because you can't hear anything except birds and the breeze in the tree, and now peacocks. They have 20 peacocks, and we haven't been there lately. And I said, if you don't separate the peacocks from the peahens, you'll have 100 peacocks. And when you try to plant something, they will eat all the seeds. Peacocks are famous for being anti-agriculturalists. So, I've had an experience with peacocks. We had it in Brazil. I planted a whole field. It took me like 2 days. And the peacocks came in like 3 hours and ate all the seeds. And I had to battle with the peacocks and battle with the geese. definitely not good agriculturalists. But they sound nice, they look good, and they sound nice. Not the geese. The geese was that farm had some angry geese. They were always chasing, fighting. Other things also. So this is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. And the kings, the leaders of society, must preserve this parampara. As our Srila Prabhupada said, it was very important that we get these books to the heads of state and to the intelligent people and to the scientists and the leaders of society, because they will influence others. Just like, Modi gave Putin a Bhagavad Gita. Now, if everybody in Russia saw that, they would all want a Bhagavad Gita. And so imagine if, somebody shows the most famous cricket player there's a short on Facebook where the most famous cricket player is getting Bhagavad Gita, and he said, "Thank you so much, this has changed my life. Therefore, we should go to that famous cricket player and say, we'll pay you this much to do an advertisement. You get the Bhagavad Gita and you say, this has changed my life." And then everybody will, where are the Bhagavad Gita? And we'll have a line outside our temple. So this is how you think in Sankirtan. Sankirtan devotee always thinks, how are we going to get these Bhagavad Gita? Get it to the famous cricket player, get it to the best actor or actress, get it to someone and make sure somebody films it. And you see them getting Bhagavad Gita. I'm sure by now Putin has censored that picture because although he's not actually, he was never against the devotee. Because the mayor of Moscow was the most difficult person. That's another story. But, he was never against it. Some judges, because they were all influenced by the church. The church is very powerful. And the church saw that all of our intelligent people are going to the Hare Krishna. We're just left with the cannon fodder. And so they were a little upset. Now it's all kind of mellow. But still, they won't let us do Harinam. They used to let us do Harinam. So this is, we should be very fortunate that here in Trinidad we can go out on Harinam. You go to Moscow, you can't go out on Harinam. You can, and you'll end up in jail. Just like in England. The first time I went on Harinam and they put me in jail. And then we went out the next day and they put us in jail again. And then when I saw, some of the devotees were from there, they said, they were on a first name basis. The police didn't think, well, come on, you gotta go, back to jail. Sorry about that. And after some time, of course, they got permission to do Harinam. That's what it was like. On Sankirtan, I went to jail at least 35 times. Luckily, my brother-in-law was a lawyer. I would just call him and say, where are you? Okay, I'll get you out in an hour. I can say, you gotta get everybody else out. No, you're my brother-in-law. Oh, come on. I won't leave unless you help them. So I give all their names and he would call the police, I'm a lawyer, and he would let us out. Then the next day, or 2 days later, the police would come. We told you can't do this. Well, we're just trying to help you. And sometimes they would let us go. But sometimes they would put us back in jail. And so it was interesting story. So anyway, these are some thoughts I have on this very important subject matter of parampara. We should see that the parampara, as it descended to Arjuna, and Arjuna, it descended to the 6 Goswamis, and it descended to everyone in the Vaishnava parampara. So this is Arjuna's parampara. We are in Arjuna's parampara. but in the Shiksha line. Anyone who gets, and especially if we happen to get Srila Prabhupada Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, when we give Bhagavad Gita to someone, we are giving them the Parampara. We're giving them the introduction to Parampara. And then they will be initiated, and they will be fully fixed in the Parampara. But this is such a wonderful process that Krishna has given us. And therefore, we should take advantage of it, practice to the best of our ability the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, chant the holy name to the best of our ability, and try to always improve. Try to take one step closer to Krishna every moment. And then, before you know it, you'll be a pure devotee. And then before you know it, you'll go back home like that. It may only take 50 years or 100 years or a few lifetimes. Only. But you compare that, you put that on the line of time, since just take the last 10,000 years, make a line. Oh, your lifetime won't even be a half of a point on that line. So, whatever it takes. And therefore, Guru Goswami says, Dairya, be a little patient. But don't be too patient. Don't be so patient that you don't allow it to happen. See, I like this patience. No, I'm so patient that I'm not even reading Bhagavad Gita. No, I don't want to bother the parampara. I'm so patient. No, not that patient. Just patient, waiting for Krishna's mercy. Tate kampam susuvikshana. Unjane gatvakitam vipaka. Just enough patience to see that Krishna will not abandon us. Everything is happening by Krishna's mercy. That much patience. And understand that once we surrender to Krishna, there is no, everything is coming from Krishna. He's arranging. He may not personally be directing your life because you still have some conditioning, but his energy are making everything happen for your good. This is what. So thank you all very much for your kind attention, and I'll stop here. Any comments, any questions? Yes. This is about Harinam in London.
I've been part of that. I never got arrested. We would run as soon as we saw the black and white. But anyway, Krishna speaks in the Bible about the four kinds of impious persons who don't surrender to him. So when somebody like Einstein, they come in contact with Bhagavad Gita, but they cannot accept Krishna, is it basically because of this impiety, or is it just, as we say, that they need to have the right person to teach them? What is stopping them from having that opportunity to have the teacher?
Well, it's probably the wrong commentary. If there was any, the first Bhagavad Gita I got, there was no commentary. So, it was just left to my meager intelligence to try to understand something. And, I loved it, but I couldn't understand. When I read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, I understood something. But if the Bhagavad Gita is not coming, this is the rahasya, this is the confidential. So, of course, Gita in itself is pure, and therefore even that contact, even Bhagavad Gita by Sir Frederick Lloyd or whoever is still Gita. So the verses are there. So this is, we say these books are like a time bomb. That's a time bomb with a long burning fuse. It takes a while for it to happen. But certainly Einstein probably, by appreciating Bhagavad Gita, took birth in some Vaishnava, came into contact with some Vaishnava society, and maybe he's back home, back to Godhead by now. Or at least maybe he's Maybe he incarnated as Sarabhuta Prabhu. He was brilliant. You know, one of Sarabhuta's calculations, he calculated once there was a rainstorm in San Diego. So he calculated the weight of the water. And it was something like, 10 billion metric tons of water. And he said, just see the mystical potency of Krishna. He can make 10 billion tons float in the air. Wow. You're right, how you made the calculation. It was like amazing weight of the water that fell in one rainstorm. And Krishna makes it float in the air. Now we take something that's 10 billion tons and try to make it float in the air. Take a mountain here. What's the biggest mountain here? Whatever it is, try to make that float in the air. See what happens. So Krishna can do it. And he showed it by overnight. Picked it up. So, the point is that, yes, there must be some benefit. But that benefit will fructify when you get the right Bhagavad Gita from the right person. And otherwise, there's always some benefit. Just like I read one letter this morning, and Srila Prabhupada says, by some agyata sukriti, I came into contact with my spiritual master. So we don't know what is causing this to happen. But Prabhupada's general answer was, causeless mercy. It may be that someone was a devotee, or it may be that someone, got some prasadam in their past life, or whatever. But Prabhupada preferred just to let you think it's the causeless mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore you will look for more from the right place. And not try to get a past life regression, remember what I learned in the past life, and try to put it into practice. Because you may learn the thing that caused you to give up Krishna. Oh yeah, I now remember why I gave up Krishna consciousness. Let me give it up again. Yeah.
I read in the Gita where it said that you could distill the Paramatma. The demons, when they fasting or doing all these great things, they distill the Paramatma within them. I think I read that. I don't know if it's the Gita where I saw that in the definition of the demoniac. Do we as neophytes, do we aggravate the Paramatma?
Do we what?
Aggravate the Paramatma within us. Because he said he's aggravated when demons fast for so many years.
If you fast for a political purpose, then it doesn't aggravate Paramatma. But, Paramatma is, in the body of a stool-eating pig, so certainly somebody fasting is probably more pleasing to Paramatma than being in a pig's body. But Prabhupada says it like that because a devotee should think like that. That if I'm fasting because the Vaishnavas recommended, or because I want to have more time for chanting and hearing, which is the actual purpose of fasting, is to have more time for chanting and hearing. The eating process takes a long time, and you have to digest it. If you don't eat, that's why, the Goswami, one time, one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, why did the Goswamis not take Mahaprasad? You're supposed to take Maha, beneficial. And Prabhupada said, because they would forget to eat. So absorbed in Krishna, they would forget to eat. Not that they were trying not to eat, they would simply forget. It's like a young child is so absorbed in play that they forget to eat. So, we may also be absorbed in service and we forget to eat. But, so fasting should be on that basis. That I want to fast because the spiritual master or someone has recommended this will be more beneficial for my bhakti. And therefore, oh, it's for bhakti, it's for pleasing Krishna. Let me do it. And then we hope we come to the platform where I just forget. And just forget to eat. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful class. It's a continuation of Mataji's question only. Just like as he said, the four kind of people, they don't surrender to Krishna.
Yeah.
And Einstein, like Prabhupada, when he translated Maya Pratigyana, the scientists, Prabhupada quote, scientists are Maya Pratigyana. So can we put Einstein in that category? That's why
No,
he
because he had some light. But he was in that category a little bit because, his knowledge, Srila Prabhupada described Maya Prabhita Jnana. That it means that their intelligence is covered by Maya. They can't use it properly. They don't have fully developed intelligence. Because real intelligence, real intelligence is you go to Krishna. So, but he had piety and he appreciated Bhagavad Gita. At the same time, his knowledge was not perfect, even though he was so intelligent. Which also teaches us that you can achieve Krishna by intellect. It's not a requirement. It's not. Sometimes it's an impediment rather than a benefit. Sometimes intelligence can be very bewildering and make us think we're better than others. And then you go in the opposite direction. You become proud. One time Srila Prabhupada said that the scientists and the philosophers, they are the pure devotees of life. That we have pure devotees of Krishna, and Maya is her pure devotee. So pure devotees in all camps. And it's like, Hiranyakashipu, he was a pure devotee of the maniac mentality. Perfect. Perfect. Yes.
So, like if a devotee has like a type of mental illness, is that something that you can transcend, or is it something you just have to deal with and kind of get a handle on?
Like a problem.
Well,
An issue.
yeah, if he has, like, it would affect the decisions that he makes and the way that he sees the world. So, is that something he has to transcend, or is it just something he has to kind of get a handle on and try and cure, or?
Well, something is transcendental by something like that is either transcendental or it can be like a test. Krishna will test us, but he's not testing us so he can know where we're at. He's testing us to show us where we're at. He already knows. He knows better than we know everything about ourselves. He knows what we did in the past life, and one before that, and one before that. He knows exactly why anything is happening to us. And we have no idea. We may have some idea. And so, he's letting us know what we need to do to improve. Show me. What are my limitations? There are different types of tests. Or sometimes a devotee may have some physical, mental, intellectual defect. And that's, it may have various reasons. Because of some offense in the past lifetime. You may have some problem. The offense was of such nature, like offense against the holy name, or offense against someone, offense against the dawn. So it may cause some defect in our life. It's like, I won't mention not a very pleasant thing. Something happened to one young devotee. Sometimes we see even in a devotee family, the child may not survival. I've seen that in many cases. So that child got a blessing because he was born and hearing the Maha Mantra and had to go through that experience probably to be liberated into Krishna's pastime of hearing some Latin. But just to have to go through that suffering because of some little glitch in their previous service. Or someone who has heavy karma, but got some prasada. Or some. What Krishna says, the complexities of karma are very difficult. The intricacies of karma are very difficult to understand. Better to practice akarma, which is what we're doing, hopefully. What we're doing, which is practicing akarma. No reaction. Because I'm offering all my actions to Krishna. But offering something to Krishna means that you really offer it. Not you just say I'm offering it, but you're not really offering it. No. Just like I can have these cartels and I can say, I have some money, say, I'm offering this to Krishna for his service. Let me go buy some ice cream and enjoy. And it's all Krishna conscious. Krishna will accept. But if you really offer it, if I have these cartels and I start playing, chanting Maha Mantra, I'm offering these cartels to Krishna. And if I'm working, but I'm using the results of my work to become more Krishna conscious, then I'm offering my work to Krishna. So it really depends on what do you do with the result. How do you interpret what's happening to you? How do you understand it? Is that okay? So, Hare Krishna, I think we'll stop here. Thank you all very much for your kind attention. And may Krishna bless everyone with more and more enthusiasm and desire to chant His holy name and serve Him eternally and enthusiastically.
Gurudev Maharaj ki jai.